Queens of the world. Borte, Genghis Khan's beloved empress. Thank you to Groons for sponsoring this video. Genghis Khan is famous for launching the conquest of the largest contiguous empire the world has ever seen, and for fathering enough children that today nearly every person of Asian descent carries his DNA. But he might not have done any of it if not for the love he bore one incredible woman, his empress, Borte. The couple started their story as a great romance. As it evolved into a saga of war, conquest, and politics, Borte was by her husband's side, ruling in his stead and influencing trade across the empire. She doesn't seem to have minded his many other wives, whom we will also meet today. Let's get to know the great Mongol Empress, Borte. In 1161, on the rolling plains of what is now Western Mongolia, surrounded by gleaming lakes, rivers, and jagged snow-capped mountains, a baby girl was born. Borte Eugen was the daughter of Chotan and of Dai Sheshen, chief of the Olkolnud tribe. Their people were nomadic herders. The people moved throughout the seasons to find their flocks water and grass. They frequently traded with and occasionally raided settled communities to obtain goods they were unable to manufacture. Their animals numbered mostly sheep, which were hardy and provided wool. Felt fashioned clothing, blankets, and yurts. Tents which could quickly be dismantled and easily transported to the next fertile grassland. Sheep also provided milk, meat, skins, and bones used for various tools, and their dung was collected by children to fuel fires. There wasn't a lot of wood on the Asian steppes. Mongols kept some goats and cattle and camels for dairy, meat, and as beasts of burden, but their most valuable and revered animal is the horse. The Mongols' speed and agility on horseback allowed them to efficiently scout out the next camp and make lightning-fast raids on settled communities. Many Mongol legends cast horses as heroes, and over 500 words in the Mongol language are equine-related. They ferment horse's milk to make a sacred alcoholic drink called erag. Their manes are believed to contain their spirit and are never cut. When a horse dies, it is greatly honored. Its spirit is believed to have the power to help or hurt its owner. Mongol children are taught to ride before they can walk. So it was with Borte. The secret history of the Mongols, the main primary source that records her time, describes her as having a fair complexion, with light in her face and fire in her eyes, meaning she was beautiful, intelligent, and bold. But Mongol women were far from shrinking violets. Their existence was hard and they had to be tough. Though women spent most of their time tending the flock and keeping the home, they also had all the skills of a man. This included everything from hunting down wolves that threatened the flock to waging war. They were skilled with a bow and arrow, sword, and on horseback. Daughters were praised for being as strong as their brothers. During their annual winter war season, the whole family traveled to support a warrior husband and father. This led to a more stable family life, and wives were ready to pick up their husbands' weapons if needed. Formidable womenfolk dictated a more egalitarian gender dynamic. Wives were allowed to keep their own religion, and if a married daughter was abused or neglected, she was welcomed home and protected by her own family. Women wore the same clothes as men, a form-fitting robe called a dell, fashioned from animal skins for the poor or silk from China for the rich. Wealthy women accessorized with beaded headdresses and jewelry. These constituted a considerable amount of the family's wealth, as they could be easily carried. Most significantly, the woman owned the family's yurt. 10-year-old Borte donned her best headdress when she was introduced to Yasuge, chief of the Komog Mongol clan, and his 9-year-old son, Temujin. The chief came from a powerful lineage, but had fallen on hard times. Thus he was seeking an alliance with a powerful family through the marriage of his eldest son. It was important in their culture that brides be found from far away. Rearing animals made them well aware of the risks of inbreeding. Father and son were headed to meet another tribe, but they came across Daxian by accident. The night before, the wealthy chief had a dream about a falcon placing the sun and moon at the feet of a young boy. When fate delivered Temujin to him, he knew it was meant to be. Even though the poor chief could not afford Borte's bride price, her father agreed to the betrothal. It was decided that Temujin would stay and work for his future father-in-law to pay off the debt until the child fiancés were old enough to wed. Chief Yasuge bid his son farewell, then headed home. On the way, he encountered a camp of Tartars enjoying a feast. He had killed one of their relatives in battle, but he was hungry and the party was lit, so he disguised himself and joined in. Hospitality is vital to nomadic societies, so the group welcomed the stranger. But his costume wasn't good enough. Someone recognized him and served him a cup of poison arag. The next morning, Yasuge bid his host farewell and mounted his horse. But he was soon vomiting and doubled over in pain. He reached his wife's yurt, and from his deathbed, he sent a message to retrieve his son so he could come home and care for his siblings. After 3 days of agony, he died. Temujin's future father-in-law allowed him to return home. As he was too young to take his father's place as chief, another member of the tribe took command, and Temujin, his mother, and siblings were abandoned. They resorted to a life of poverty, hunting, and gathering. As Temujin entered adolescence, he plotted to retake his birthright. He was his father's eldest son by his senior wife, but he had an older half-brother, Börte, born to a concubine. He hoped to cut his little brother to the chase. So Temujin and his younger full brothers hatched a plot. While the siblings were out hunting, they ambushed Börte and murdered him. Their mother scolded them, but Temujin now had a clear path to retaking power. When he reached the age of majority, 15, Temujin determined to honor his oath to marry Borte, whom he hadn't seen for 7 years. Her father had feared that he had died and was delighted to welcome him back. He oversaw the marriage and accompanied the newlyweds back to the groom's camp, where Borte's mother presented Temujin with an incredibly valuable black sable cloak. Though their marriage was arranged, Borte and Temujin came to truly love and care for each other. Before long, they welcomed a daughter. One day, an old serving woman was out seeing to the flock when she felt the ground trembling. She ran back to the camp, screaming that a raiding party was on the way. Temujin was undoubtedly being targeted, so his mother put him on a horse and sent him into the mountains to safety. The rest of the family jumped in the saddle and followed him, but there were no mounts left for Borte. A servant hid her in an old cart and tried to pull her to safety, but a spoke broke and she was surrounded by enemy Merkit warriors. They were thrilled to have captured such a valuable lady and took her back to their own chief, who might have forced her to become his wife. Most Mongol men who learned that their wife had been raped would have mourned her for dead and remarried. But Temujin was devastated and blamed himself for leaving his beloved wife behind. He cried that his bed was made empty and his breast torn apart. He took the valuable black coat her family had gifted him and presented it to Ong Quan, a neighboring chief. Together they hatched a plot to rescue Borte. After 8 months pining for his wife, Temujin and his new army attacked the Merkit people. The secret history describes, as the pillaging and plundering went on, Temujin moved among the people that were hurriedly escaping, calling Borte, Borte. And so he came upon her, for Lady Borte was among those fleeing people. She heard the voice of Temujin and recognized it. She got off the cart and came running towards him. Although it was still night, Lady Borte recognized Temujin's reins and tether and grabbed them. In the moonlight, he recognized Lady Borte, and they fell into each other's arms. Life on the Asian steppes wasn't easy. The Mongols survived primarily on animal products and had limited access to diverse plant nutrients. Even today, modern diets aren't nearly as rich in nutrients as our bodies need to operate at their best. That's why I've added grunes to my daily routine. These easy-to-grab gummies are a multivitamin, daily dose of greens, and a probiotic, all rolled into cute and seriously tasty gummy bears. Grunes has over 20 vitamins and minerals and 60+ whole food ingredients. Grunes puts a lot of care into their doses, so you're getting 100% of your daily needs of safe vitamins. Grunes are nut-free, gluten-free, dairy-free, and vegan, meaning they're made with plant-based pectin, not gelatin. They have no artificial colors or flavors and come in low or no sugar options, but they taste like a fruit snack. Each daily pack includes 8 gummies, but I'm always searching the pack for one more. Oh well, I'll get another pack tomorrow. Start your new year off right with Grunes. Get up to 52% off by clicking the link in the description. And now back to history. Though Temujin once again had his wife by his side, he was bent on destroying the Merkits and chased them down across Asia. He found he quite enjoyed this, so he didn't limit himself to slaying only the Merkits, but anyone who opposed him. He conquered people across the wide expanse of the steppes. He slaughtered many, but preferred to leave them alive so that they could join his army or pay taxes. He amassed a huge fighting force and came up with a few important personnel innovations. First, he scattered conquered warriors among his own people so that they would assimilate rather than rise up against him. He also shared the spoils of war evenly and promoted based on merit rather than noble birth. Thus, his conquered people quickly became loyal to their new ruler. By 1206, he had united the people of the felt tents and took the title Genghis Khan. The Mongols were shamanists and believed that the spirits of nature and their ancestors inhabited the world around them. Over everything arched the sky god Tengiri. Temujin believed that Tengiri had chosen him to conquer the world in his name. Those who stood against his manifest destiny were resisting Tengiri's will and must die. In this divine mission, he subdued northern China and the eastern Islamic lands. The cities of Nishapur in Iran, Merv in Turkestan, and Herat in Afghanistan all resisted the Horde and were destroyed with ruthless efficiency. In 1222, the Horde besieged the city of Shari Gulgula in modern-day Afghanistan. After weeks of starvation, the ruler's daughter, who resented her father, shot an arrow into the Mongol camp. On it was a note which proposed a deal. She would reveal to them a secret entrance to the city if the Khan would marry her and make her a queen. Temujin agreed, and the princess showed him that if his men dammed up a canal, a passageway into the citadel would be revealed under the water. The Mongols crept into the city at night and slaughtered everyone. The screams of the dying could be heard throughout the valley. The city, which remains abandoned to this day, is now known as the City of Screams. As for the princess, when she came to the Khan for her reward, he told her that he would never trust a woman who betrayed her own father. He ordered her to be executed in a horrific, yet common way among the Mongols. She was tied up in a carpet and dragged behind a horse until her body was torn to shreds. The Mongols have a lasting reputation as savage, violent, uncouth barbarians, particularly in the West, where they haunted the dreams of medieval Muslims and Christians. But this is not entirely true. Temujin was well aware that the settled people he was dominating far outnumbered his horde. If they rose up against him, he would be defeated. So it benefited him to be preceded by a horrific reputation. Many of the stories of Mongol brutality were exaggerated or fabricated. And it worked. When the Khan's army approached a city, it was often handed over without a fight. But the Mongols were more than mindless barbarians. When they conquered a new land, they allowed its local leaders to remain in power, providing they sent proper tribute. And because their own faith was tied to the landmarks of their homeland, they did not expect others to follow it and allowed freedom of religion. They valued artisans, scholars, and engineers, and forcibly settled them around their empire to facilitate technological advancement. This cross-pollination of ideas created valuable commodities. Gold brocade, which took silk from China, gold from Tibet, and weavers from Baghdad, dressed the Mongol rulers and their wives, covered their horses, and lined their tents. They ate from blue and white pottery, which utilized porcelain from China and blue cobalt from Persia. And their bowls were often filled with rice, a staple in Eastern Asia, which the Horde made popular in Persia. So thank the Mongols next time you order from the halal truck. These goods were traded along the artery of the Silk Road. It had existed for over 1,000 years before the Mongols, but it was riddled with bandits. The Mongols loved trade because they could tax it. They made the Silk Road safe and popular again. It was said that a man could walk from one end to the other with a gold plate on his head without being robbed. They also created a communications network similar to the Pony Express. In addition to being the catalyst for her husband's empire building, Borte was also his most valued advisor and helpmate. While he was off slaying, she managed the people and animals and made sure everything ran smoothly in his camp. She advised him on martial and political matters. On one occasion, the secret history records Temujin's brother bursting into the couple's tent while they were asleep together and asking for help with an enemy. Before the Khan could say anything, Borte sat up in bed, covered her breasts with the edge of a blanket, and described the cruelty of the enemy. After listening to his wife, Temujin decided to help his brother. He also followed her advice when she told him to break with an important ally after the friendship had soured, and she insisted that a shaman be punished for insulting his younger brother. The insolent holy man's back was broken. After Temujin became Genghis Khan, she was crowned Khatun, or Grand Empress, by his side. As his territories multiplied, so did Borte's power and responsibilities. She oversaw the empire's economy and diplomacy. She advised merchants and managed trade routes across Asia. And she did it all while giving birth to 9 children, 4 sons, Hochi, Chagatai, Ogade, and Talui, and 5 daughters, Kua, Alakai, Tumalun, Alaltan, and Chacheken. The daughters were married to key allies, while the sons donned armor and rode into battle alongside their father. On his own, Genghis Khan's military genius might have burned bright for a generation, then faded to a footnote of history. But the large family Borte provided transformed his brief spark into an eternal flame of dynasty, which would burn across Asia for centuries. She enhanced her own social standing and secured the love of her people by adopting and raising many orphan children. However, Borte was rather famously not the only woman to warm the Khan's bed. Like many other Mongol men of his status, Temujin took several lesser wives. Yasugen was the daughter of a Tartar leader, whom the Mongols killed in battle. When Temujin saw her among his prisoners, he wanted her. She went with him willingly, or as willingly as she could in that situation. While they were in bed together, she begged him to marry her sister, Yasui, as well. The Khan found her just as beautiful. The sister wives were each given their own courts and territories to rule over, and they often accompanied Temujin on his campaigns. When he became ill at the end of his life, they concealed his condition. Kulan was the daughter of a Merkit leader. When her battle-weary father finally surrendered in the winter of 1203, Temujin demanded his daughter as a term of surrender. The Khan sent one of his officers to deliver his new bride, but when they arrived 3 days late, Temujin was furious and accused the officer of sleeping with Kulan. He protested, claiming that he had to take a longer route to protect the girl from other soldiers. He invited Temujin to have sex with her himself and inspect her virginity. When the Khan was satisfied with his new wife's purity, he accepted her father's surrender. But the Merked leader rose up again. He was again subdued, and this time there would be no peace. Kulan's father was executed, and his wealth plundered. Temujin didn't hold Kulan's father's actions against her. She gave birth to a son, Jeljan, who fought at his father's side. Mog Khatun was given to the Khan by her father, a chief of the Bakran tribe. It was said that Temujin loved her very much, but she was more interested in his son, Ogedei, with whom she often went hunting. When the Khan died, Ogedei married his father's widow. She was among his senior wives and briefly acted as his regent. Ibaka Baki was the eldest daughter of an incredibly wealthy Kirat leader, who allied with Genghis Khan to defeat the Nemans. As part of the alliance, Ibaka was given to the Khan. 2 of her sisters were given to the Khan's sons. After 2 years of childless marriage, Temujin had a nightmare that he must leave this wife. He divorced her and gave her to one of his generals as a reward. The Khan allowed Ibaka to keep her title as Khatun, but he requested that she leave him a token of her dowry to remember her by. Juarbiesu was a renowned beauty and a favored wife of the Khan of the Neman tribe. He was a useless ruler, so she was the real power, at least until Genghis Khan rode in. He destroyed the Nemans and killed their Khan. Furious, the freshly widowed Juarbiesu offended the Mongols by calling them dirty and smelly. But when the reality of her situation struck her, she took back her insults and visited the Khan in his tent to beg forgiveness. She surrendered herself to him and promised to serve him well. He was beguiled by her beauty and took her as a wife. Borte and these 6 lesser wives were all Mongolian, but the Khan also had a number of foreign concubines, 2 of whom are well known to history. Choka was the daughter of a leader of Western Sa and was handed over to the Khan as a term of surrender. Chikwo was the daughter of the Emperor of China. In 1214, the Mongols laid siege to Zhuangdu, modern-day Beijing, and she was handed over as a condition of surrender. According to legend, as Mongol soldiers conquered and pillaged Asia, they had a standing order to bring the most beautiful women they captured straight to the emperor. While this sweeping edict is now questioned by historians, there are plenty of examples of the Khan claiming choice women for his bed. Allowing soldiers free rein to pillage, enslave, and rape the inhabitants of a city they conquered for a set period of time was standard practice among the Mongols and many other conquesting groups, including the Vikings, the Magyars, and the Romans. It was considered the right of a soldier who had bled for a city to take his fill of it. The human victims of these atrocities were reduced to nothing more than the spoils of war. The sexual exploitations perpetrated by Genghis Khan himself are laid bare in the human genome. In 2003, researchers found that about 16 million men in Central Asia, or 1 in 8, carry Genghis Khan's Y chromosome. While that seems like a lot, his total number of descendants is actually much higher. Because the Y chromosome is passed down from father to son, this figure only accounts for men who have only had male ancestors between themselves and Genghis Khan. When you add in everyone who has had even one female in their lineage back to Khan, the figure jumps to the billions. While he's probably not the ancestor of every person of Asian descent, his progeny is unquestionably prolific. But exactly how extensively the Khan spread his seed in his own lifetime is a bit of a mystery. Some reports claim that he sired between 1,000 and 3,000 children. But this number is now questioned by historians, who wonder at the plausibility of the emperor successfully siring 6 children every month of his 40-year conquest, and still have time and energy to jump in the saddle. It is now thought more likely that Borte's 9 children, plus the offspring of the Khan's lesser consorts, all of whom became prominent members of society with ample opportunities to reproduce, were even more effective at spreading their father's genes than he would have been on his own. Only Borte's sons were considered eligible for the throne, so naturally they fought each other over inheritance. As Hochi was born 9 months after his mother's captivity with the Merkits, his paternity was somewhat questionable, though Borte vehemently denied being raped. Still, his younger brother, Chagatai, often insulted him and claimed that he was not the rightful heir. Because of the infighting, Genghis Khan skipped his 2 oldest sons and instead named his 3rd son, Ogadai, as his heir. Borte and Temujin continued to have a close relationship into old age. There is nothing recorded of her being jealous of his other wives. Presumably, she accepted their existence as a natural side effect of being married to a powerful man. But her position as the ultimate empress by his side was never questioned, so these other women were no threat to her. In the winter of 1227, the 65-year-old Khan was besieging the city of Zhongxing in China when he fell ill. Some say he tumbled off his horse, others that he contracted malaria, typhus, or even bubonic plague. Marco Polo claimed that he was shot by an arrow, while another scribe said he was struck by lightning. A legend even claims that the emperor had a beautiful captive woman brought to his bed. She smuggled in a dagger and stabbed him in the genitals. Genghis died after 21 years as Khan. Borte arranged a grand funeral, secured the succession of her 3rd son, and advised all of her children not to fight but to band together against the world. She followed her husband to the grave 3 years later, in 1230, when she was 69. She was likely buried by her husband's side in a secret place somewhere in the Mongolian homeland. The location of the great Khan and Khatun's burial remains a mystery. 8 white yurts were set up for the people to come and pray to Genghis and Borte. In the yurts were a pair of matching, empty royal coffins. The golden lineage of Temujin and Borte continued to expand the Mongol Empire. Their children and grandchildren conquered the Turks and the Russian princes, destroyed 2 European armies, seized Baghdad, and claimed southern China. Their speed and agility allowed them to conquer 11 million contiguous square miles. They amassed more land in 25 years than Rome did in 400. Their empire was the 2nd largest in human history, topped only by the British Empire in the 19th century. But it remained intact for only a single generation. The grandchildren split it up in the midst of civil war. Hochi's descendants formed the Golden Horde and controlled Eastern Europe. They famously spread the bubonic plague from Central Asia to Europe in 1346. They went into decline in the 1500s as Ivan the Terrible was building up the Russian Empire. The children of second son, Chagatai, formed a khanate that controlled Central Asia. Their descendant, Babur, founded the Mughal Empire in India. Ogadai's son, Gayuk, died without an heir, so the sons of youngest brother, Tolui, took over the heart of their grandfather's empire. Hulagu formed the Ilkhanate, which later became Iran. Kublai Khan became the first emperor of the Yuan dynasty of China. His daughter, Princess Jaguk, married the king of Korea, modern-day Korea. The last of Temujin and Borte's ruling descendants, Sayyid Alim Khan, was Emir of Bukhara until 1920, when he was overthrown by the Russians. The many generations of Asian royals in between claimed descent not only from Genghis Khan, but also from his revered and beloved wife, Borte, the mother of the Mongol Empire. Want even more tea on history? Check out the History Tea Time podcast. You can now follow History Tea Time on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, comment your thoughts, and check out my other history videos. You can also join my Patreon to support my work and get early access to all of my multi-part series. Thank you for watching.